Today we're going to do this learning activity. I really want to start using microservices and getting into that. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on microservices, and I've been struggling to find a good set of tutorials. We have a book on microservices, but it's not really a how-to book. It has some examples of code and walks through some code later on, but really doesn't have a step-by-step, how to set up microservices. It's not that sort of a textbook, the Microsoft one. So we're going to do something a little different today here. We're going to do a learning activity where we're going to try to use AI to step you through a tutorial on how to create your first microservice app here. And again, I wanted to do this today. In past classes, we've done the quiz in class for 90 minutes, but now I've moved the quiz. Last year, I moved the quiz to open book, open notes. And so then I'm going, well, it's not really worthwhile for me to basically then it's a take-home quiz. I guess it's possible that you could help each other on the quiz, but to tell you the truth, I think AI is going to be more helpful than your neighbor on this quiz there. So I don't think it really helps. I mean, if you want to ask your neighbor to help you out in your quiz, that's fine. But I don't know if I trust your neighbor on that. There. So I decided to make the quiz take home, basically. So replace. So rather than an assignment this week, you're going to do the quiz, which is just basically 5 essay questions. Reviewing what, from stuff in the past part of this class. So to force you to kind of review and go back and that sort of stuff. So no assignment, but the quiz this week, I'll just note that the quiz is worth about the same amount of points as the assignment is. Assignments are worth 20 points, the quiz is worth 25. So, and so we're going to go through this learning activity here and use AI to do this. So I've given you a basic starting prompt here. That you could use and go to your favorite AI and ask that. So you can go Google, Microsoft Copilot, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Google Gemini. I think if you're doing Google Gemini, you have to be logged into a different account. You can't use yours, at least right now, CSS is blocking Gemini, which I haven't been able to figure out why yet here. Or if you want to ask Claude or some other AI, that's fine too. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing what some other AIs do here. And then we want you to create a basic, microservice, app or application that illustrates microservices. We'll have two. It'll be a basic ordering kind of process. We'll have a list of products, and we'll have then an order, which will then contain which of the products from like the product catalog are in the order for this. We'll have just a list of products and an order here for that. We'll run this all in Docker. So we want to have Docker support, and we'll test that. Now, we won't define a front end. We won't define a web interface to this yet here. We'll just define this kind of back end with the microservices so we can kind of just see how they work and how they kind of could communicate with each other. And so this will all be using this what we call a web API or a RESTful API for this stuff. So what I suggest is start up your favorite AI, paste that prompt in there. Now, if you are not using Visual, like in the lab here, we're using Visual Studio 2022, but if you're like on a Mac and you're using VS Code, on a Mac, I would put that in here. It should adapt the instructions for VS Code on a Mac here. So again, change that one part. And I've highlighted that in purple here for us to see. We're also using, we'll use .NET 8. And again, if you don't ask AI to do it, it'll tend to do .NET 6, which isn't that much different, but I think it's just nice to tell it to use .NET 8 there. And then see what kind of instructions it comes up with. Let's see, which chat GPT should I? I'm gonna try this new preview. See, I haven't tried it on O1 preview, so we'll try it on there and see how that goes. The new ChatGPT O1 preview does a lot more thinking and prep before it creates an answer for it, and compares actually a couple different answers, it seems like. So, and then I want you to follow and create this app here. I've given you the basic outline. I think this will be what your AI tells you to do. If not, kind of compare it to this outline here. We have to create a solution. Inside the solution, we need a products project and a order project here. And we need to set that up, and hopefully it does it. So here's my, again, ChatGPT version of it here. So open Visual Studio, create. So I'll let you walk through this again. So I think the first step will be open Visual Studio, create a new project. And again, we want a ASP.NET Core Web API project here. And we want, they're saying name it product service. So that's what I'm going to do initial. Again, yours might be a little different. So I'm going to select this ASP.NET Core Web API. The project within this, the initial project, will be our product API or service. So I'm just calling it product service. And then we'll create this. Remember, when you do this, we don't want HTTPS configured, no authentication, and we do want container support, because we do want this to run on Docker, and it should build Docker files for us. If you're on VS Code, there's a command. You can add a parameter for Docker support, or you can enable Docker support later on through the command line here. One thing I'm interested to see is that how well you find following the AI instructions work with this. Sometimes with projects like this, I find the AI instructions hard to follow, in that if I know what they're doing, they're easy to follow. But if I don't know what they're telling me to do, which is often the case, I find them hard to follow. So again, I want you to go there. So again, take this prompt. You're free to modify this prompt, and again, you probably have to add a number of prompts after this to fill in details here. Ask an AI to do that prompt, and then start following it, and it should basically lead through this. I'll periodically, do some of the same stuff here. Yep. Oh, okay. Let me check on that. Yeah, let me know. I didn't think, I thought you can run Docker desktop without any of the admin stuff. So you, at some point, it should ask you when you're starting up the project, uh, to run Docker desktop, here, to debug, and it should create, Docker desktop and open it up, without any admin privileges, but Hunter ran into the problem, but could. Yeah, could just be Hunter's, you know. Now, by default, you get often you'll get a simple app which has a weather forecast and a weather controller here. And if you run it, um, it will run in a web browser, and it runs something called Swagger, to connect up to your API. Because again, we didn't create a front end, so it should create this front end, with this Swagger, and we can then just you can try out and execute it, and it'll get the a weather forecast sample, here. Um, and so again, you should have to modify this, to create a product model. We want to keep track of products, here, and implement a product controller here, which will be an API controller. We haven't done an API controller, so make sure you follow the instructions to create an API controller, and see how that goes. So we'll see how that goes for you. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, you can delete that if you want. Firewall. Yeah. I think that is some sort of account that has, that we can use, that can give you to do it, that's not, doesn't let you change your grades at the same time.
This is different.
Yes. So yeah, you'll have to create a models folder. You know, your instructions should probably tell you to create a models folder and then put the product inside there.
Okay, I don't see the models folder.
Yeah, you have to create it. So right click on the project and create a new folder.
Okay.
Right, so it probably doesn't have a models folder yet. So again, your AI instructions might not tell you to create the folder, it might say create it in the folder. But you will have to, you'll likely have to create that folder too. So. Okay. Hey, bro, check it out. I want to print the finger on for you. How's that sound? So let me try to show you where we want you to be with the product control at some point. If you're following AI live, at some point you will create the product, this project, you'll create in the models, you create a product class that'll have like an ID and a name and a price at minimum for a project for products. And then you'll create a controller here for this. And you'll need some code for the API. It has to be an API controller. So make sure when you add a controller or when you create a controller, you click API. And I just did an empty controller here. There are different ones to tie in with your stuff, but most of these want a database and a front end, an endpoint here. So I don't find them that useful sometimes. So I just created an empty one. But again, you can follow the instructions in your AI stuff and see how that goes. I just pasted the code from my AI in here for this. Now, I want some initial products, and my initial AI just generated a blank list of or didn't put anything. It created a list of products here, but didn't actually list them out. So I asked the AI again. I gave it another prompt. Change the product controller so it initializes the list of products with 3 sample products, and it generated new code, which I put in here. Now, when I run this, it should open up a web browser, and it should list the different APIs. Now, I haven't deleted the weather forecast here, so that's still there, but it should like have a get products one. Now, how these work is each one of these boxes is a different API or different interface into our API there. So it's really mapped to a different function here. And like the top one is just to get all the products. So I should be able to open up that top one. I should say try out. There are no parameters. It execute, and it should get a list. So it'll return a list of the products. I think this is in JSON format here. So that I can see, yes, all my 3 sample products are listed here. I should be able to also, there should, again, if there's not, there might be a post to get a new product here. So I should be able to check on that one. And if I try that one out, it wants me to create the JSON for a new product here. So I can type in the JSON for a new product sample. And then I can execute that, and it should add the product to my list here. And I can actually go back to my first thing that lists out all the products, execute that, and I'll see the new product. I just added the new car on the list. So this is called Swagger, this interface here. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it, expand these, run these here. But once you get used to it, it does an automatic mapping of your API for it. And a lot of places will use this sort of Swagger interface to see here. It's also like here, this one gets the product for a particular ID. So to run this, I have to enter an ID, a product ID, execute it, and then it'll get the information on that one product here. So see if you can get a basic API. You don't need all these methods, just my AI generated all these interfaces, but see if you can get a product and a product controller running. So I'm going to delete my weather one at this point. Okay. So again, if you get your product working, your instructions should tell you, where's my code, to create an orders project here. So where was that? Up here. we want to create two different services, one for orders and one for projects. So again, I want to add a new project here. And again, if I'm clicking up at the solution level, it'll let me add a new project. And again, I want to do this web core API project and call this like order services. I'm going to use the same name as order service. No HTTP, enable that. Okay. So yeah, then inside order services should be your order and your order controller. Inside product services should be your product model and your product controller. And then eventually you'll have to create a Docker compose file that'll run both of these services. Okay, someone was asking, the problem comes up that now when you run, if you have two different microservices here, one is in bold, you'll notice, and one isn't here. And the bold one is the startup one. And again, up here, it'll say, it'll just list the one that's starting up here. But you want to configure them both to start up. So what you want to do is go to your solution and you want to say, configure startup projects. And by default, a single startup project is set, but we want to do multiple startup projects, and we want to start both of these up. So you can just select both projects, both services, starting up here and say, okay. And then it should start up both services at once, okay? See if that helps. Order services, add a folder. Add a class. Oh, hang on. Okay. One thing we get into a lot is like I have this orders and I have my order class. I want to reference the product class. Isn't that where you're at?
Yeah.
Right. And same there. You can't reference the product class. So the product class is defined in a separate project here. This is it, right? I want to get to that stuff. So one thing I have to do is add dependencies. So each project is its own kind of separate world. So in this project, order project, I want to click on dependencies and say add project reference. I want to make sure, check product services. So the order services will be able to access things in the product services thing, like the product definition there. So I added that dependency here. Now we'll get into later about microservices and dependencies, and that may not be the best solution in all places, but that's what we'll do. And then we should be able to go down here and you do a using. It should say using product services .models up here. So again, that's the name of the project there, and then the name of the folder here. It's also, if I go into projects or products, this is the namespace. I'm going to be using that namespace here. So now if I have that there, then product should be found. So you should have to add this. And again, it'll depend on what you named that. But if you go in your products, it'll have a namespace there. That's the namespace. You want to say using that namespace here. So whatever, whatever that namespace is, you want to say using that same namespace in here. Okay, see how that goes. So eventually you should have your order service. I mean, you should have two different projects, one for the orders and one for the products. Each one should run in their own separate container on Docker. So each one should have their own Docker file here, which will say, and these Docker files, and the Docker files simply tell it Docker how to set up. So what these files basically do, and you can ask AI to describe these in more detail, but it really just tells it to copy all your source file over into the container, copy the project and all the source file, and then build the container, recompile it, and build your product in the container. So that's what it's doing here. And it'll be slightly different for this orders. It'll be copying the order project and source.order service or whatever over into the container and compiling it over there. So you have those two Docker files. Again, if you create these projects with Docker support enabled, those Docker files will be created for you. Otherwise, AI can create them often for you pretty well. Now, what we don't have is an orchestration file here for this. And so we should want so here's again our Docker files. Here is a Docker compose file. So we want to create this Docker compose YAML file. It has to be at the highest, at the solution level. So it should be in a folder here. And I see several people putting it in a folder. Right at the solution level, you should be able to say add a new item. No, let's see. Yeah. Add new item. And I'm just going to say docker-compose YAML and add it. And it should create a folder called solution items and have it there. And then you can take this and paste it in here. And what this will do is name your two images, product services and order services, specify where the Docker files are. So that order services, it should, that it's this folder and then Docker file. So it should get that right. Also do some internal mapping on ports. I'm not going to worry about that. And again, with order services, it'll say it depends on product services, saying that product services has to be there for order services to run because we have that dependency. And again, then assuming we have this configured, so both start up, we run this and you should get both products and orders set up running. So you should get two inner windows starting up, one with products. So I should be able to get a list of all my products. I'm going to try out that interface, execute, and it'll list out my products here. I can also host will add a new product. Get will get a product given a product ID there. And then orders. Now, orders will replicate the product stuff here, but should also have order stuff. And right now, I don't have an order controller yet. So it should have the order controller here too. It still has a weather forecast because I haven't deleted that. I can delete that. So eventually, that's what you want. You want these two, we're running in separate containers. If you go to your Docker desktop file here, you'll see them. You'll see these two containers running here, and it'll show you what ports. In fact, you should be able to access these from your web browser. We're using Swagger here, but I should be able to, like, if I want to just get a list of products here. Oops, I'm going to switch to the other one, I think. List of products, if I say execute, it'll tell me the URL for that. And I can just run that in any web browser here. I should open up that URL and it should get the list of products. Now I have to go to localhost : and then the port, or yeah, what port I'm running on. And again, if I look at Docker, it'll tell me what port the products are running on, port 32768. This is 32769. And again, it might be those are almost random numbers for that. So see if you can get there. See how far you can get. Now, remember to turn in today. We want a reflection. How did AI do? Did it generate code for you? A paragraph about that. What did it get wrong? What mistakes? And why do you think it made those mistakes? And was it a mistake, stuff? And how far did you get for this stuff? And then push your GitHub repository out there. When you create a repository, it's nice if you make it public. So again, you've got to go to Git, create repository, and uncheck private, and then push it out there for this, and create and push that. And then it should create it, and you should be able to submit the URL for that also. Okay. Go back and answer some more questions. Okay, so see how far you can get with this to submit. I expect you to spend, 90 minutes. Online students don't spend too much time with this. In class students, we have a set amount of time. You want to do your reflections. How did AI work? Did it provide detailed code? Paragraph that. Where did AI go wrong for you? And how far did you get in your 90 minutes? So again, kind of if you go through this list, this overview, how far did you get? Where did you end up with an error? You don't have to solve this. Again, this is just to show you kind of the basic idea of like, okay, we've got 2 microservices running in 2 Docker containers, and one is kind of talking to the other with RESTful API sort of calls, just to kind of show you that. So that's just the whole goal today, is to show you that. You don't have to get it all done. So I'm going to stop this now.
Wait a minute. Okay, put data by okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
I'm moving over. Oh. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. I'm still getting web forecasts here. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to delete out of the orders controller the web forecast one. Delete it here. I'm going to take my code for the orders controller and paste that in here.
I know, but we need to mention
Got to check some things. So like here, I've got an ID, not order ID. Okay. This is what you want. Now, if you get, when you run this, if you get an error, I forgot what the error is, some fetch or API error here. If you get an error where this isn't, where your one of your service is not being displayed, copy that error, and generally means there's an error with your controller. So generally then ask AI, paste your whole controller code into the AI with that error and say, what's wrong with this controller? So there should be some fix there. Now, right now you don't need to figure out how all this controller stuff works. We just want to see a sample of a two microservices running within Docker containers, communicating with each other with RESTful APIs. So that's our goal. Again, just submit what you can, how far you got today. You don't have to get all the way done for that. Okay.
Không phải đi. Không phải đi.